The Broken Empires RPG is coming to Kickstarter this summer. If you want to help me bring this game to life, go to play.thebrokenempires.com and sign up for your VIP membership today. She's going to have to spend a fortune point because that is no good. She's going to re-roll that failure. She's rolling on 60. Oh my god. Does she have to roll again? I think she has to roll again. Well, welcome back once again to Me, Myself, and Die, Season 4, Legacy. This is Episode 2. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And if you do want to help support the channel, please do consider hitting like and subscribe or joining us here on the YouTube channel memberships or over on Patreon. All of that support is super helpful. And of course, we are kickstarting the game I'm developing through Season 4 as well. So if you want to help support that or be a part of it, you can go to play.thebrokenempires.com. All of the information is in the description below. Last time, Vale and Thrag had emerged into the Red Wastes, where they were heading towards the city of Ansharir, there to attend the Masquerade Ball of the Vizier, which only happens every 13 months. And they had to get there within 3 days in order to take the next step to find out what is going on with the Lich Matsaroth, who was recently awakened. We're not exactly sure if he was totally awakened or not. We will have to discover that, but Vale is in possession of something called the Spirit Mantle, which I'm not exactly sure what that is. It's just one last piece of Sherilyn's power, essentially. So what does that do? We don't know yet. We're going to find out. So before we get started, we have some experience to give. So yes, in this game, you get experience just like anything else. But in the Broken Empires RPG, you get experience by pursuing your goals or by having your personality change. There are personality mechanics, which I haven't shown you yet, but they do exist. Just to keep things very simple, I'm going to give Vale 3 experience rolls. Now, what does that mean? That means she can spend those experience rolls or experience points, if you want to call them that, to improve her skills or to buy specialties, which are kind of like feats, right? Well, the first thing she's going to do is to see if she can increase her light weapons skill. So how this works is she's going to roll D100, and she wants to roll over her current skill. If she does, the skill's going to go up by a bit. And if she rolls under it, equal to or under it, it's only going to go up by 1. The better you are at something, the harder it is to improve. Her light weapon skill is also a talented skill, which is something you have at character creation. So that means it goes up a little bit more every time that she does advance it. But let's see if it gets up at all. And 76, it does. Awesome. So because light weapons is talented for her, she's going to go up by 1d6 plus 1, but light weapons is also an aptitude skill, which means it's a skill that's tied to one of her 2 aptitudes. In this case, her aptitudes are agility and intelligence. There are no stats, but there are aptitudes. And that means it goes up by an additional plus 1. So this is going up by 1d6 plus 2, which is very significant. Okay, well, 1 plus 2 is 3, so it goes up by 3. So her skill goes from 70 to 73. I think she's going to try and increase her Persuade. Her Persuade is not great. It is 35, so she's going to try and roll over 35 with that. She does. It is not a talented skill, nor is it an aptitude skill, so it goes up by 1d4 plus 1. So it goes up by 4, which is great. So her Persuade goes to 39. You know what? I think we're going to do Manners, because I have a feeling that the social encounters coming up are going to require a lot of these skills, so I'm going to roll that as well. Her Manners is only 35. Oh, unfortunately, it only goes up by 1 because I rolled underneath it, and it's not an aptitude skill or a talented skill. It just goes to 36. Okay, that was her spending skills. Thrag can do the same thing. Now, Thrag he's not really a fully fledged PC, but you know what? We'll treat him as that. Why not? We'll give him 3 rolls as well. I think he's going to try and increase his Intimidate skill. So it's 40. He's got to roll over that. He does not, so it goes up by 1. It is, however, an aptitude skill for him, so it goes up by 2 instead. I think he's going to try and increase his Perception. His Perception is 55. Oh, 54, bummer. Perception is a talented skill, but it's not an aptitude skill, so it goes up by 2. So it goes up to 57. And his last one, I think we will do... let's do a survival, actually. This is an aptitude skill for him, and also a talented skill. And it's at 60. Unfortunately, no. So because it is a talented skill, it goes up by 2, and it's an aptitude, so that's an additional plus 1. So it goes up by 3. He goes from 60 to 63. 3. And that is it for the experience rolls. None of them are going to be by any specialties at this point. Okay, so they had just come out of the rocks of the canyon down towards An-Sharir. They are now 2 days from An-Sharir. The travel rules had changed sort of mid-episode last time, so I'll just briefly explain how it works. You plot your course on the map and you can tell how many days it's going to take you. In this case, they're only 2 days away, barring any further complications, which of course could always come up. So the question isn't how many days is it going to take us to get to the destination. The question is how exhausted are we going to be when we get there, and how many resources are we going to have to spend in order to get there sort of in one piece. So they are 2 days out, which means that Vale is going to make her guide roll, her track roll, to see how many hexes they can go before their next event. Now, they do have 2 bonus success levels from their local lore roll from before as well, which they can apply to this if they want, so she's gonna do that now. But before we get there, we're going to set the mythic scene. Vale and Thrag leave the canyons and set out across the desert. The question is this scene interrupted or altered? Well, let's look at our chaos factor. It was 5. I think our characters were more or less in control last time, so I'm going to lower the chaos factor to 4. And now let us see if, in fact, this scene is interrupted or... Oh, and look at that. It is, in fact. Okay, so we have an interrupt scene. So as they are setting out from the canyons, and again, it's the beginning of the night because they're traveling at night because it's way too hot to travel in the day. They're setting out the canyons, but they are interrupted. What does that mean? Let's find out. All right, so what is the focus of this interrupt event, or scene rather, 30? NPC action. Okay. Who is the NPC that takes action? NPC, and it is 5. Akom the Death Knight. Which is Montserrat's slave, basically, and protector. What is the action? 28. Defend. 2. Defend adversity. The Death Knight takes an action, defend adversity. This tells us that the Lich is at least partially aware, and I think the reason why he's aware is because he senses the Spirit Mantle. I think that piece of Sherilyn's power, Sherilyn, who was the only one that ever bested him, who trapped him in this dream prison that he is now kind of half awake from, I think he senses it and sends the Death Knight to deal with this. But I don't think that the Lich knows anything else. I don't think that, like, there's no reason that the Lich would know about Vale or Thrag. It doesn't make sense that the Death Knight would suddenly appear in the desert here. Oh, but it does mean that the Death Knight does the Lich's bidding in order to protect the Lich from this incoming threat, which is the Spirit Mantle. So I think the Death Knight is going to issue orders to... Oh, this might be interesting. This might be very interesting. I think the Death Knight is going to issue orders to the Silent Death, which was a secretive group of assassins that are thousands of years old, that are still around. It was the Silent Death that Montserrat had influence over, and I think still does. So the Silent Death Assassins group is still here. I think that what happens is Montserrat is made aware of the Spirit Mantle, and he commands the Death Knight to take action. And the Death Knight is actually going to approach the Silent Death Assassins Guild to try and track down Vale and Thrag, or the Spirit Mantle, and deal with them. Okay, so that is going to be a threat for the future. That is the NPC action that is taken. We'll have to keep that in mind. Okay, well, things just got a lot more complicated for Vale, although she doesn't know it yet. Now, they are going to continue their trek towards the city of An-Sharir, and they are 4 hexes. They're 40 miles out, which is 2 days, barring any other problems. So, they had the 2 bonus levels of success from their local lore roll, but Vale is going to make her track roll to see how many success levels we get before... Okay, well, this is very, very bad. That's a failure. That is a fumble. Okay, so what that means, when you fail at this roll, it means that the event that you befall happens in the very next hex. So they get like 10 miles. They don't get very far. Basically, it's midnight when an event befalls them. So when an event happens, we need to know a couple things. We need to know how many travel stains they take. Yes, travel stains, like a travel stained cloak. How many travel stains they take, which is basically lingering fatigue they take. We also need to understand the event quality, whether it's a danger or an opportunity. Because she fumbled her roll, there's going to be a penalty on the travel stains roll, which essentially means that they're going to probably wind up taking a lot more travel stains than they should have. It's going to be very tiring for them to get out of this last leg of the canyon, and I think what it is perhaps is because they are going from the edge of the canyon into the sands, I think that they have to scale a small wall perhaps, or a cliff face, and that's extremely exhausting, and they move on. But midnight that night, we get to the event location, and so this is the quartermaster's domain now. So this is Thrag. Now Thrag can either be the quartermaster or the scout. I said last time he can do both. That's no longer the case. He has to pick one. He's going to roll his survival roll now. What this is going to do is any successes he gets is going to act as a modifier on this travel stains table, hopefully to reduce the amount of stains they get. Thrag's survival is 63. It's just gone up a little bit. Okay, great. So I think that he's going to actually use the last 2 success levels from the local lore roll to increase that to 5 success levels. Means he can basically roll on the travel stains table with a +5, but we're at -3 because of that fumble, so it's really +2. And also they're moving through difficult terrain, which is a further -1. So that's gonna be -4, and so it's a net +1 to this roll, and it's just a D10 roll, and it is 7, so 8 means tiring. Everyone takes 1 travel stain. That is not terrible. So far, they're both at 3, and this is lingering stamina that does not go away until you have a proper rest in a safe place, and that is not on the road. Okay, now we need to know what the event that befalls them at midnight on the first day is. They're going to be tired by the scaling of this cliff, but what is the actual event? Well, in order to know that, the scout would normally roll perception, but there is no scout because we don't have enough people in the party. Which means that we're just going to roll on the event quality table straight up. We are not in a different zone. We're not in a yellow zone anymore. We're in a normal zone, so this has no adjustment to the roll. And there's no positive modifier from a successful perception roll from the scout either, so this is just straight up. And what do we get? 4, which is a danger. I have a couple of ways of doing this, and I'm still kind of working through the details, but essentially I'm gonna roll to see what is the basic nature of the danger that they it's a weather/terrain danger. Okay, well, interesting. They're in the desert, middle of the night. Oh, well, I know. Yeah, this is good, actually. So as they're scaling that cliff, I think what happens is that a big wind, a night desert wind picks up and begins to sort of buffet them as they're trying to get down the cliff. The issue is going to be, are they going to be able to get down the cliff safely without further incident or delay or damage or anything like that? So how this works is, this event has essentially a difficulty, and this is going to be rolling an extended test. So they have to roll a certain amount of success levels in total in order to get past this event. I don't think this is going to be a particularly difficult test. It wasn't a terrible roll. So I'm going to just call it a challenging test, which means they need to accumulate 5 success levels, or else if they don't, there is some further penalty to them. We're gonna say that Thrag is on a rope at the top of the cliff. He's helping Vale down. She's basically scaling down, like rappelling down a little bit with this rope that they have. But this wind picks up and she has to see if she can navigate this cliff. Now this sounds obviously like it's gonna be an athletics test, and I think that is true. So she is gonna be trying to make this athletics test. Her athletics is 50. Is she going to be able to do it? Oh, she just fails. She just fails. That is no good. I think she is going to have to spend one of her very, very precious fortune points. Her fortune points are now down to 3. She had 4. These reset every session, but you only have a limited amount of them. So her athletics is 50. Her reroll is a 0-3. Okay, well, still not great. Because it's a success, but it's 0 degrees of success. So this is a 0 degrees of success roll, but because it's an extended test, that means it counts as a minimum of 1. So they accumulate 1, which means that Thrag now, I think what he's doing, she is trying to keep herself stable on the cliff face, but the wind is like buffeting her, and it's basically like this. It's like the wind has a hand that reaches out and grabs her and begins to slam her against the rocks. It's really bad. So Thrag now has to try and deal with this. Thrag is going to be making an endurance roll to see if he can stabilize her and get them both down safely. He's rolling at 60 and he rolls a 49. So that is 4 degrees of success, which means that they have accumulated 5 degrees total. Against the difficulty of 5 degrees, they are able to pass this test. So Thrag is able to not only get Vale down safely, but he's able to get himself down as well without any further repercussions. Now, if they had failed that, They might have taken wounds or further damage or lost equipment or gear or whatever the case is, but they were able to overcome that danger, and therefore they do not suffer the effects of that danger. Great. Whew. Okay, well, bad scene. It does not really delay them that much. So they continue on. They're fully in the desert now, and this desert is like, we're talking like rolling sand dunes everywhere. The classic sort of Arabian desert kind of look. She is doing her track roll to see. Okay, success with 3 degrees. That is perfect, because 3 degrees of success will put them right into the city of Ansharir without further event. Perfect. So it still takes another day and a half to get there. So they will get there in the 3 days that they had to get there. They weren't delayed because of events, but once they arrive, they still have to make a travel stain roll. That's the first thing that happens. There is no additional event at arriving here, but they still have to make a travel stain roll. Thrag is gonna make a survival roll to see on 63 and 14. Okay, well that's 1 degree. So he gets a bonus of +1 on the table. It's difficult terrain because they're in the sand dunes, so it's -1. This is just a straight up roll. How many additional? 5. Wearying. 2. Everyone takes 2 travel stains, additional travel stains. Oh boy, that's really, really exhausting. They've each taken 5 fatigue essentially from this. But it's not over yet, because by the time they get to the city of Ansharir, they've taken the stains, but as soon as you arrive at your destination X, you can actually make a personal endurance roll. And if you succeed, your success levels offset the damage you've taken over the course of the journey. So if the tougher you are, the more likely you're not gonna be quite as tired. So let's start with Thrag. His endurance is 60. And he rolls 20. So 2 degrees of success, so he can erase 2 of his travel stains. Excellent. And what about Vale? Vale, her endurance is 35. 29, 2 degrees. So she also gets rid of 2 of those travel stains, which means when they do eventually arrive in the city of Ansharir, they will only be suffering 3 travel stains, which is very good. So they've been traveling all night, and as they come over a crest, a dune sea behind them, they look down, and there they can see, spread out in front of them, winding its way out of the mountains, is a ribbon of blue. That is the jeweled river as it makes its way through the choking dusts of the red waste. And surrounded on either side of the river is the lush green of agriculture as the delta floods and allows crops to be grown. The sun is rising behind them, so the sun comes up and sort of crests the horizon behind them, and there illuminates the shimmering city of Ansharir. They can see it is a walled city with many, many gates. They can see many lines of camel trains and various other sort of merchant traffic coming in and out of the city. Even at this hour, with the first rays of dawn, they can see its spires and its minarets and its domed towers all throughout the city. It is a sprawling, bustling metropolis. The morning sun glinting off of the towers of the city and glimmering off of the blue ribbon of the jeweled river as it makes its way past the city and out through the rest of the red wastes. And with that, they begin to make their way down the slopes towards the city itself. They are coming in the northeast gate, which is just east of Feadrel. They are coming into the Al-Shawab district, which is sort of the main residential district of the city. The buildings are almost all sandstone. There's not a ton of wood here, as you can imagine here in the desert. Wood is a very scarce supply. They begin to hear the cacophony of thousands of people all coming to wakefulness as the sun rises. They can hear the sound of cockerels crowing, and they can hear the sound of merchants beginning to set up their stalls and begin to start hawking their goods. Even from this distance, they can hear the sound, the bleating and the lowing, whatever sound a camel makes, all of those sounds as these wagon trains, these camel trains are making their way towards the city. And the smell, as they get closer to the mighty walls of the Shimmering City, they begin to smell spices and, of course, humanity, and the smell of sweat mingled with these sickeningly, cloyingly sweet spice smells that comes from the various foodstuffs being hawked in the marketplaces. It is loud, and it is an assault on all the senses. Not only is it an assault on the smells and the sounds, but the visuals. As they get closer, they can see now that this is not some simple drab beige city. No, these sandstone buildings have been painted in a multitude of colors. There's vibrant blues and greens and all spectrums of color that have been used to decorate various murals on the sides of walls and buildings. It is just a feast, and it's an extravaganza for the senses as they get there. They're challenged by the gate guard, but only very, very briefly. They're not merchants, they're not peddling wares, so there's no taxes or fees to enter the city or anything like that. And the city of Antrir is not currently at war, so there's no reason to challenge every visitor. But still, that said, I think that Vale keeps her rapier mostly hidden and covered, and so does Thrag. He keeps his axe mostly hidden, although that's harder to do. Now, Thrag is going to stick out a bit here. The city of Antrir is overwhelmingly human, so I think right away, Thrag, knowing this, and Vale knowing this, I think they would have made some sort of plan for this. So even something as simple as he's tucked his beard into his tunic, and he's got his hood up to not immediately give himself off as a dwarf. Not because there's anything particularly wrong with being a dwarf in Antrir, it's just that Vale does not want to cause any more attention or garner any more attention than she absolutely has to. But they make their way through the streets of Al-Shawab, past the hawkers, past the city waking up, and they are immediately making for an inn because they're going to need to sleep for at least a few hours and then make their preparations for the Vizier's ball. Now, remember that the Silent Death Assassins have been tasked with rooting out the bearer of the Spirit Mantle. So that's going to come into play. We're gonna have to make some rolls to see if that interrupts anything. We're gonna see how that goes. But first of all, she finds an inn. I think there are many inns here, but it's called the Grinning Scorpion, we'll say. Now, there's not a lot of people in the Grinning Scorpion right now. It is first thing in the morning, and I think when she walks in the doorway, there's a small fountain burbling in the courtyard. There's a stable for mounts as well. Of course, they don't have any mounts. They walk in covered in the dust of the red wastes, and I think this portly, bearded man comes out and introduces himself as Pasha, the proprietor of the Grinning Scorpion. Yes, of course, my dear. Please, come this way. Of course, I have rooms for you and your friend. Please, come this way. It will only be a few gold coins, or whatever the currency of the realm is. They make their way up the stairs into the second level of this sandstone inn, and there they find rooms. Now, I think because wood is so scarce here, I think that there's no actual doors. I think it's curtains that are drawn across. So, not great for privacy, but that's okay. It's small little cells with a small little bed, but they do find two side-by-side cubicles, and they go in and they're able to rest. Now, the question is, and this is a question for the fate chart, what are the odds that the Silent Death has already started to sniff them out and track them down? I don't think the odds are very good of that at all, but we are gonna roll. I think it is very unlikely, and we are at Chaos Factor 4. And we roll a 32, which is a no. It is a no answer. So far, so good. The Silent Death Assassins have not tracked down the bearer of the Spirit Mantle, but they will be trying again. Oh yes, my friends, make no mistake. The Silent Death will hone in on their quarry, and they will do whatever they must to find them. But for the moment, Vale and Thrag are safe, and they take their rest. Now, this is a safe place. There is no immediate danger. Therefore, they are able to rest away those travel stains, so that's fine. If they had emerged from the desert in a so-called adventure site, then those travel stains would interfere with their current stamina, and that's bad. So, we're good. Now, I don't think that Vale and Thrag sleep particularly long. I think they get a few hours because she has a few things that she wants to do before the ball. For one thing, she's gonna have to get an outfit. It is a masquerade ball, so she's going to have to be in some sort of appropriate wear, some sort of dress gown of some sort, but she's also gonna have to have some sort of mask, which, I'm sure there are shops towards the palace that have such things, and more importantly, she knows that if a member of House Bangara is in fact at this masquerade ball, she has this necklace, and that could be leveraged to use in some way to get past the various sycophants and courtiers to get to the Vizier, because remember, her goal is to find out what the Vizier knows. Now, there's many ways she could do this. She doesn't actually have to go to the ball at all. If she wants, she could case the palace, look for a separate way in, and break in to see if she can discover something, but that is extraordinarily risky, and since she doesn't know the place at all, I think that's gonna be dangerous. And let's face it, Cyrus went to this all this trouble to give her this forged invitation. So it is a forged invitation, though, so there is a chance that somebody could notice that it's no bueno, but we will see when the time comes. The point is, I think, that they are going to take their rest for a few hours, and then slip out into the market district to find proper attire. Now, as they are going through the market, I think that Vale says to Thrag, I do not know if it is such a good idea for you to join me at the ball, Thrag. Your presence would draw so many eyes upon us, and I don't think we need that. Perhaps there is something else you could do instead for me to assist in this mission. He points towards one of the alleys that's close by, as if to suggest that what he could do while she's at the ball is case the joint from outside and just see if he can discover anything else. Now, he's not much of a stealthy guy, but, you know, he's perceptive, so he might be able to find something else. So I think that that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna split up before they get to the ball. But for Vale to procure an outfit is not gonna be particularly difficult. I'm not gonna worry about how much it costs or anything like that. That's all sort of irrelevant to this. She has enough funds and resources to be able to procure something reasonable. But what is that? What does she find? What sort of, I'm imagining, again, that she's gonna be wearing some sort of like light flowing desert gown, but she's going to have a mask. I think it's one of these almost French aristocracy masks where you have, you know, the stick and the the thing covering your face. I'm just gonna roll in the fate chart here, Chaos Factor 4. Is she able to find a gown and a mask, something that hides her identity without raising the suspicion of anybody, whether that's the merchant she's talking to or anybody else? I think it's very likely. Chaos Factor 4, very likely. 14 is an extreme, no, it's not an extreme yes, is 13, so this is just a regular yes, so that's fine. She's not able to find the perfect costume, but she finds something very appropriate. Let's roll a couple of descriptions to see what she finds. 5, beautifully, good start. 14, comforting, beautifully comforting. Okay, beautifully comforting. This is the quality of mask and outfit that she's fine. So first of all, it is a beautiful gown. It's very, very stunning, and it shows off a rather supple form quite nicely. Comforting to the vizier, comforting. I think it's the mask of essentially like a servant of a desert god, like the equivalent of one of their angels kind of thing. I had said in season 1 that there was a god named Morgus who was the god of the sea, the god of trade, the god of sailors, that kind of stuff. Well, Morgus does exist here as well, except in Ansharir in the Red Wastes. He is not recognized or rather worshipped as Morgus, god of the sea. In fact, he is worshipped as Mere, the bountiful lady of the harvest. In the religious belief, Mere has earthly servants that come down to earth to guide the farmers and the harvesters to, you know, ensure that the city has enough food. And I think that there's a whole series of kind of like angels of Mere, and I think that that's one of the masks is that she is dressed as one of the angels of Mere. Let's give that angel a name. Names, 23, floral, 23 is EI. Floral, I think like lavender and lavende. Yeah, lavendei. That's it, lavendei. Oh, what's Thrag during this time? Is Thrag with her? It's possible. No, you know what? No, I think Thrag is going to head to the palace district. Now, he's not gonna get very close to the vizier's palace. He can get kind of up towards the oasis, which is the lush gardens that are just outside the main palace gates, but he is able to kind of like circumnavigate the outside of the vizier's palace and get a sense of, you know, its defenses, how high the wall is, more importantly, what the guard complement is, if there's, you know, constant changing of the guards. He's gonna try and see if there are any ways that are visible to him to access the palace from outside if it was necessary. Now, he's got a lot of time to do this while Vale is buying this gown and this outfit, so he is going to do a perception roll as he cases the outside. Does he see anything of interest? He does not, unfortunately, because his perception is only 57, so he's unable to see if there's any immediate access ways. That doesn't mean that there aren't, it just means that if there are access ways, they are clearly being guarded. So perhaps there's a number of places in the wall where there's like a series of trellises and vines growing up the side of it, which would normally be a great place to kind of climb up, but he can see that those areas of the walls have had their guards doubled. So there's not gonna be any easy way to sneak into the palace for anybody. So I think that the masquerade ball is gonna start around 10 o'clock, so they still have some time. So they rest up, they consume their rations, they eat, and they just kind of prepare themselves. What's an alias she's going to use for this? Lady Akima Akfarel. It's from my homebrew list of names I've put together for this. When the time comes, when the sun sets and the cool breeze of evening settles in upon the city of Ansharir, the bustling markets settle down a little bit, the stars begin to twinkle in the desert sky, overlooking the shimmering city, and Vale makes her way through the streets of Al-Shawab, all the way down the main thoroughfares towards the oasis. Now, at this point, Thrag splits off from her. She sort of gives him a nod, he gives her a nod, and he makes his way. He's gonna basically be shadowing her from a distance. He's not gonna be able to get into the oasis, or much less to the palace, but he's gonna try and keep his eye on where she's going as much as he can, and he's just gonna be kind of outside. He's still gonna be looking for any clues or information, because maybe there's servants outside that are talking about what's going on inside, and maybe he gets some clue from that. We're gonna ask Mythic about all this stuff, but in the meantime, Vale makes her way down the thoroughfare and enters the oasis. And again, there's fountains, burbling fountains everywhere. This is just lush and rich in this desert city to have this little oasis, this little pocket of perfectly manicured lawns even, and palm fronds and all manner of plants and flowers and things. But the oasis itself is currently filled with a bunch of nobles and guests who are waiting to get into the palace. And as she moves through the oasis, she can see moving up towards the main gateway, the main arched gate that leads into the palace itself. There is, of course, a couple of guards there, all decked out in the official armor of the Vizier of Ansharir. Their helmets with blue plumes on top, and their long halberds. But they're flanking a bureaucrat, an official of some sort, whose job it is to check the invitation against the list that he has. So as she moves up, now comes the question: how good is this forged document? Does the bureaucrat who's taking the names and checking the names against the list, does he notice anything suspicious about this invitation? Let's call it unlikely that he does. And there was a 25% chance of a yes, and I rolled a 24, so yes, he finds something about it. It's not an extreme yes, so it's not like he immediately sees it's a forgery, but I think what happens is the bureaucrat looks at the name on the list. Again, the smell of the flowers is everywhere, the songs of the night birds is filling the air, but all Vale can focus on is that bureaucrat. House Akfarel. I have not heard of anyone from House Akfarel in a very long time. I was under the impression that your house was it reduced to penury? Was it reduced to what, did they go broke? Yeah, let's say that. I had heard that House Akfarel had been reduced to penury, and yet here you are, a representative dressed in a very beautiful and comforting gown. Well, this is news to Vale. She did not know anything about House Akfarel, so she is going to lie. She's going to use her deceive skill, which she's very good at. I think she feigns an insult, like, how dare you, sir? My family has undergone trial after trial, and yet here I am, presenting myself to the vizier himself, and you have the audacity and ill manners to bring up a sordid event of my family's past. What passes for manners here in Ansharir, I wonder, my good man? Oh my. Well, let's see if she can get past this. She's gonna have to spend a fortune point because that is no good. She's going to re-roll that failure. She's rolling on 60. Oh my god. Does she have to roll again? I think she has to roll again. And yes, you can spend multiple fortune points, but she's down to 1. 60. 42. Okay, 4 success levels. Okay, so the man arches his eyebrow and says, I meant no disrespect, Lady Akfarel. Please, be welcome to the Vizier's ball. She's kind of haughtily sort of, shrugs it off and then walks into the courtyard of the Vizier's palace. It is filled with nobles. She knows that these people are going to be in the Vizier's palace in less than 1 hour, and they are going to be essentially barriers between her and the Vizier. She is going to need to understand how to approach each of these people in order to get past them and closer to the Vizier's inner circle. That is her goal. In order to do that, she's going to roll her various social skills. She only has so many times she can fail. That number is called the tolerance. She can only fail so many skills before she blows it and she loses her chance to speak to the Vizier himself. She does not know these people, and she does not know what each person is going to be amenable to. So she has 1 hour in this courtyard to basically do her recon. So how is she going to do it? She is going to roll on her perception. She is going to mingle, not saying anything, not actually trying to be part of any conversations, maybe get a sense of what's going to be the best tactic to use against them. So here's how we're going to do this. She's going to roll a perception. For every success level she garners, that's going to be one person who she overhears and gets a good sense of the best way to deal with, okay? Her perception is 50. So here we go. Wow, the dice are just completely against me today. I have to use my final fortune point. Oh boy, here we go. It's on 50. Success. Okay, good. Okay. 3 degrees of success. 3 success levels means over the course of the next hour, she is able to just kind of hang around on the outside of various conversations and eavesdrop. And now she knows at least 3 of them. At least 3 obstacles in her way. She knows what not to say, and perhaps she knows even the proper thing to say, but there's no guarantees of anything, of course, because the dice will always tell the story. A bell is rung and the great gates of the palace open. A bureaucrat emerges. He claps his hand and there's sort of silence that descends upon the oasis, upon the courtyard. Nothing but the sound of the burbling fountains going off and the cries and songs of the night birds. Be welcome to the Vizier Avansharir's masquerade ball. Follow me, and we will begin the night's festivities. And he turns, and with that, the whole group of nobles, the assembled group of nobles, including Vale, slowly begin to file their way into the inner palace of the Vizier's ball, where Vale is going to have to perform a social combat to see if she can navigate her way through the maze of courtiers to get her way to the Vizier himself and see what the Vizier knows about the Lich Montserrat. But how is that going to go? What will she discover? We will have to find out next time on the next episode of Me, Myself, and I. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And of course, if you want to help support what I'm doing here, please do consider liking and subscribing or joining us on Patreon or on the YouTube channel memberships. And if you do want to help bring the Broken Empires RPG to life, the Kickstarter is launching later this summer. Sign up at play.thebrokenempires.com and become a VIP to reserve your spot. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you on the next episode of Me, Myself, and I.